group you guys together because I have a burning topic that I want to kind of discuss with the team. And
Burning.
the big statement I'm going to throw out there is that I'm feeling relatively burned out, like a mid-year burnout. And I think kind of give you a little bit of context. I had a pretty hard Q2. Like I know Q2 just wrapped up, but overall my Q2 was pretty rough, combining travel, aboard, and then also time zone differences, plus a lot of stress coming from work, from clients, and it just made overall Q2 more of a difficult. I have like multiple clients having issues, and I felt like I put out a fire and another fire starts. So it's like never ending for Q2, and that has been a thing. And luckily now we're at the beginning of Q3, and now things are getting quieter, and I am having more of a mental space to rest and like chill a
Hmm.
little. But the Q2 momentum of like rushed and like laser focused and like have to be on top of everything has kind of really like in that short amount of 3 months burned me out quite a bit. And just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts about like how to recovering from burnout and really pick that up afterwards.
I do want to like set in a line like what burnout means. I feel like it's a used terminology in a lot of different contexts for people. So I would love to just kind of define more before we get into the conversation of like what
Yeah.
does that mean for you? Yeah.
I think generally the burnout is work, also a little bit of not enough time for myself
Hmm.
personally. So like work is was stressful. I was also doing a lot of traveling between Q2, so I think that puts me. Like overall, I just feel like I don't have enough time for myself, and I don't have like even the weekends. I feel like it's not enough. I feel like I just took a big vacation, and I felt like I'm not. I need another like 2 3 weeks to rest, and
Hmm.
that's the feeling that I'm feeling mentally. Like I don't know if you ever have a feeling that you want to refresh your mind a bit, and that's what
Like
I'm
clear
looking
it
for.
out, like clear it
Clear
out
it
and
out,
being able.
refresh it,
Mhm.
and like, but there's not a way or outlet that I can tap into to get that. Even the weekend, like
Mhm.
it's hard for
Got
me
it.
to unwind and get that clarity in my mind. So I think that so it's of course it's a portion of work, but also a portion of like myself, personal life. So it's both in
Mhm.
terms of that. 'Cause I think everyone thinking about burnout is like work related. Work does have elements, but like maybe work has a lot of influence into your personal life, which does make sense. But I think overall, like as a person, I would say like my mind, my brain doesn't feel rested or refreshed, and I'm looking for that like clarity.
So I feel like it's like a symbiosis, right? They affect each other. It's like the yin and the yang. And it's a very delicate, well, as the saying goes, work life balance, and they affect each other. Have there been situations where, because you're so depleted and you don't feel recharged, that it's affected your work or people have noticed it?
Actually, so that question, I don't think so. It's more of me and like me feeling that I'm feeling my mental um burnout are
Mhm.
more are like more serious than like I'm not showing outwardly, but it's more of an internal thing. I haven't really openly expressed that with my manager and my team, but I did say, oh, I felt Q2 was hard, was
Mhm.
challenging, and I did say to my manager that, and also I'm like, Q3, I'm going to take the time to recover from that. It might sound serious, but it's just like sort of indirectly telling her, oh, I'm gonna take a little bit slower in Q3. I'm hesitant about taking like be very upfront about oh I'm burned out because I don't think there's any like I don't think it would do any good to me if thinking from a manager lens it's like oh you have a like employee who's burned out like you kind of as a manager you kind of go into the what can I do? How can I save her? Like kind of mode, which is not what like what I'm trying to go at. What I'm trying to go at is like kind of pace myself. It's more like I think I internalized it more on my own
Mhm.
rather than put that on the manager or my team. So first of all, I think that is like to not stir the pot, and then also I think this is more of me internal thing rather than the work related.
I do have a question for Jenny. Did you identify burnout as like, I'm doing too much at work, I need to stop? I would love to learn more about why you thought in that sense and learn more about you, what burnout is.
I mentioned this in a previous podcast, and I used to work in a situation where the company was really a pressure cooker, and everyone was feeling the heat, literally, and everyone was firing on all cylinders because the company was facing some financial hardships. And with that, the people team at this particular organization stressed burnout and mental health and taking personal days. In fact, they had an unlimited PTO policy throughout the organization, and also hired like an outside consultant to talk to the teams about expressing their emotions, survivor's guilt, because there were multiple layoffs at this organization, as well as having a manager who told everyone on his or her team that they can trust him or her. If you're experiencing burnout, if you're having problems, if you're feeling overwhelmed, that he or she has an open door policy. Well, it came to my personal situation, came to a point where I was having major psychosomatic issues in terms of not eating, not sleeping, lying in bed, being just incapacitated and overwhelmed, and it was affecting my work. And initially, I very much like Cleo felt that I should internalize it, that I'm a grown ass adult. It's not my first time at the rodeo, and to take the professional high road. But it got to a point where I really reached a breaking point. So I decided to take some time out during our one-on-one to say, like, listen, like, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I'm working crazy hours. What do you recommend I do? And it really bit me in the ass.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm afraid, because that's like when you openly think of it, Tova and Jenny, if you all have you are all managers, and if I come to you and say, hey, I'm burned out, what's the first reaction? I think immediately rings a red flag. It's like, oh,
What's
this
she
person
burnt
burned
out from? Like, why would they be burnt
out.
out?
Like, why? Like, and also, what did we do? How can we help you to get out of that state? It's like unnecessary, I would say, like kind of
You're opening
emergency.
the door to unnecessary scrutiny or
Yeah,
view perspective
correct.
that you want to, I got you.
What I also found interesting about this life lesson was the fact that as a people manager, I knew that it was universal throughout the organization that people were burnt out just
Yeah.
from like the word on the street, talking around the water cooler, having one-on-ones with my own team members.
Yeah.
And instead of, in terms of my own direct reports, instead of coming to me having this heart to heart conversation, they just put up boundaries. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not taking on that project. You can't have that draft of the presentation by Friday. I need until next Tuesday. And I just found that generational difference very fascinating.
I definitely hear that.
I think going back to what Cleo was saying, people don't like to talk about this because it's almost like saving face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, they don't want to put their reputation in jeopardy, and they want to be able to keep their head above water and not admitting that they're paddling like crazy underneath.
Yeah.
underneath.
I have a question for both of you when it comes to these kind of feelings. do you feel, and again, this is more just out of curiosity and also like how I identify and resonates with me, is it you feel like you're reacting to everything around you so you don't have a chance to make your own choices, or it's like you have this ongoing of tasks, like, or it's a combination? I'd love to learn more and kind of from your each of you what that was that during that experience.
I think it's definitely a combination for me. It's like a
Mhm.
never ending list of things. And I felt like everything that like a call that I wrap, I have 1,000 follow-ups to do, like this and that, this and that. Like I need to go to different people. So that's the task list. And also it's, see, like I have a moment of like blank right now, just right now. Like I just think my brain just doesn't have enough capacity to process all the things. So I
Like
think
it's coming.
that's it's yeah, correct. It's like there's too many things, there's too many things that you put into your brain that you're trying to, oh, I need to don't forget this and don't forget that. So it doesn't create a mental capacity for myself, a space for myself. Typically, when we also, and within our brain, the way how I'm thinking about it is that you have work, you have personal work and duties and stuff. You also a place for yourself that's like creates peace, creates love, creates things, appreciation about yourself and things like that. And I feel like that part it got shrink so small to the point probably to none that I feel like I'm not feeling enough of my active self.
I think for me, it was self-induced
Mhm.
because I am conditioned to go above and beyond. And for the sake of not only my reputation and career development, but also being a good worker bee and pleasing my manager, that I had to just take everything on and taking tremendous accountability for my work and putting my professional life ahead of my personal life to that was the sacrifice. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people do that, particularly in a
Mhm.
very competitive field. Um, and in retrospect, did that serve me? Did that really get me ahead? I'm not sure. I think I'm still coming to terms with that.
Mhm. And the reason why I'm asking this, because like I've gone through this version, like I said, now for my own self, working for myself and doing things for myself. Like there are moments where I feel like I'm doing all these activities and I'm not getting where I'm not seeing the result. And I'm like, okay, so where is this coming from? Like, it's I'm trying to navigate that. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of self-induced. And what I found myself was getting caught up in other people's priorities and expectations and not putting myself at the center. So, what I mean by that was, my kids, it was the year end. So there was graduation, there was finals, there's getting ready for summer camp and summer plans. And they wanted what they needed first. And then working with my clients and consulting. And they, every time they had an idea and a thought of like, okay, I'll take on, and I had to say to myself, like, doing these actions, are they getting me to my goal? Are they getting me to where I want to go? And do I need to entertain and take on what someone else thinks or feels? Because I was starting to then own that. Like you said, Jenny, right? You put on, no one else was doing it. So you felt the accountability and responsibility, and it was up to you to do it. And I've
Hmm.
gone through these kind of versions where like I had to tell myself literally like stop right now. And before responding, to think it through of, is this getting me to my goal? And even for clients, like if it's not quantifiable, is it me who needs to be investing this time for them? And I'm still going through it right now and trying to figure that out. So I'm coming from a place of curiosity and learning when I'm expressing this and kind of asking my questions.
So I think the key word there that you said was quantifiable, right? Quantifiable KPIs. And this is a very hard lesson I learned. I had a situation where I was taking on tasks that I should not have done, including administrative ones, because there just weren't the resources. I put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself to get things done so that things are still, the wheels are kept turning, and spending weekends filling out spreadsheets because no one else wanted to do it. And there was this one situation where I was quite proud of myself because no one else wanted to do these mundane tasks and things needed to get done. And I spent a weekend filling out these spreadsheets. And I told my manager about it. And this person said to me, and I'll never forget it, "You're a very expensive secretary."
Wow.
Ooh. How did that feel? Wow. I'm still like digesting that for you.
Wow.
Yes.
So on one hand, it was like a ton of bricks. But on the other hand, this person's not wrong.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, well, where does that leave me? What the hell am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be a bully and make someone more junior on the team fill out these forms? But on the other hand, he was right, because a secretary or a junior level person or assistant could do this, and I shouldn't be doing it. It was a weird catch-22. I'm not sure.
I had a team member who would take on a lot of things and he didn't follow a process. And it upset people and all these different issues that came up with it. And I had a conversation. I said, you have to let the process fail in order for change to happen. I said, you have to not take on other people's responsibility for us to then get what we need. So in order to the change to happen in this company environment, we have to say, look, this is the process. I followed it. Here's where it failed. Here's the root cause. So now we have a place where we could say this is where improvement, but there's a gap that has to change. And I said, only through that can we actually get real change. Yeah, for my own self, I couldn't do it.
I love that. I think perhaps this is what well, I know failure, the F word I like to use, failure, is very taboo, because no one likes to fail. No one wants to be held accountable for failing, right? But I also had a CEO I did not report into, but obviously managed the organization, who came from Silicon Valley and was a big believer in failing fast. And I think it's very much along the lines of what you were saying, Tova. Let it slip through the cracks, let it fail, but recover fast. And I think that's what my manager, who said to me that I was a very expensive secretary, I think that's what he meant. Let it slip through the cracks, but then find a solution that's much more efficient so you can do your real job.
Yeah.
But very similar to what you were saying, I didn't want to be accountable for a failure, right? I didn't want that to bite me in the ass in a performance review. So it's a very vicious cycle.
And Tova, I remember you spoke about this with me when I was experiencing something similar in my current org last year. Now it's completely different and moving to a good direction. But back then it was just like people were very short staffed at this startup company, and like it needs a lot of my team's hand holding or interference with the other team in order to get a problem resolved, because it's gonna like piss off the client. So we as a team has to push on the other team. So we're doing a lot of that. And I think to the point that I got so frustrated when the other teams are not making any movements because they're busy working with other things. It's not that they're not working on that task. It's that they're working on so many other tasks, and this meant to be like a lower priority for them. So I think at that time I get so frustrated, and I even like start bumping heads with the other person. And I think I spoke to Tova about this, and Tova, you shared the same exact story. Let things fail. Then it's going to be very apparent to the managers, the senior folks, to understand this is what's breaking. You need to fix it. have a process in place to fix it. So that's the approach that I actually put that in practice in
Mhm.
work. And it's really like, okay, I'm gonna step back, take a step back. I did whatever I need to do, whatever I can. If it's not get to it, it failed. Customer is pissed off. They're unhappy. Hey, we gotta suffer through this. It's okay. I can step in, comfort the customer, but the work we need someone to realize is not okay, not acceptable. And how is that going to be shown? Is through the work that we didn't do. Therefore, clients pissed off.
And again, it's like, is it a P1 ticket? Is it, you put the client's name, it's attached to a dollar number, right? And then
Correct.
how the other teams prioritize, they have to have this information to make a decision. So when you say like, hey, our process is this, so that the other teams who need to do the work knows how to prioritize, I fill in all the information. That's all I could do at that
Yeah.
point.
Correct. And I did the max I can do, like pushing, following up. And you know what? I'm gonna take a step back. Let it fail. If it failed, it failed. I did what I can, to save my ass. But if it's on the other team that didn't work on it, then it's not my problem. I take myself out of the equation here. And I'm not like, I was reading a ton of these lately. It's like, you're responsible, but don't be too responsible and too accountable for your job. Because
And,
job is a
and
job.
there's, and I
Job's a
also want
job.
to ask,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, go, Jenny.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say a job's a job. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you work 8 hours or 20 hours. If they have to make a difficult decision, they're going to lay you off.
Yeah.
What I also find very ironic about this is the fact that those tasks where when people go above and beyond to fill out an extensive spreadsheet or bend over backwards to try to fill the gaps so that things don't fail. What I find extraordinary throughout my career, those initiatives are never rewarded. I've
Yeah.
never been in a situation where this week we're going to thank Cleo for working over the weekend with the engineers when there was a technical snafu. I've never experienced that, ever.
When I'm listening to this, like, kind of relates back to the burnouts. I feel like, Toba, what you said is quantifying, but also the goal is understanding the priorities and understanding the goals,
Yeah.
how it's benefiting to the other party, but how is that also understanding how it's benefiting you. Because a lot of, like, my role interacting with a lot of clients, sometimes we put clients' needs first and then, like, oh, okay, like, we'll figure it out internally or something. And I think it's
Yeah.
also important to think about what's my return on investment, what's my
Yeah.
benefit. And it might sound really selfish to say this, but it is okay, totally okay to think about that. What am I going to get out of this?
Yeah.
So,
Where can I move forward? Yes.
right. So currently, like, what I'm thinking, like, I think a lot of Q2 for me was heads down work, burning through all of the issues, burning through the client calls, making sure everything is level setting, everything is in, like, moving from a risky state to like more of a stable state. So I did all of that in Q2. And in Q3, I'm becoming more intentional in terms of
Yeah.
what I'm
Oh,
focusing
I
on.
love that. Yeah.
I'm more intentional in terms of about allocating my energy and my time towards what items that's gonna make me look good, not only in front of clients but also my team, my managers. I think that's the most important thing. And one thing I would say, like, unfortunately, and this is like really weird and not good to say, but I'm gonna say it, like, those mundane works that no one wants to do, let it be. Like, let it be. Like, sometimes we have to let the responsible, the accountable side of ourselves, just let it go. Like, hey, this is not, I don't even like to do this. I mean, like, just to get a praise from managers on this, I think it might be worth more time for me to spend to do this type of expansion opportunity with my clients or talk to them about this specific thing to achieve another goal that I have. I think that's more shining object than doing some of the mundane work that, maybe, like, no one even really acknowledge. So I think, like, that's my thinking and my approach over here. Like, I honestly really hate doing, like, a lot of repetitive works. So did a lot of that in my early career, and it didn't yield me any good positive results. So I make sure that I state myself like out of that business completely, and to be very open, I don't like to do this. But if needed, I can. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna do it this one time. That's it.
Hmm. And again, for me, what's quantifiable now is this going to give me money? Meaning, is this going to have my client pay me money, or my client get a customer so they'll have money and that will increase, my revenue? And if it's not doing those, why am I doing it? And I had this
Right.
conversation, with client number two. I said, is this the best use of my time? My goal is to drive revenue. We need revenue right now. Is what you're asking to do going to be on the top list of things? Will it get us revenue? The consistency, well, probably. But with my time right now, does this make a lot of sense? And I stopped taking on every idea and thought because it's not going to drive productivity that will drive the revenue that I need in order to get paid. I'm just
Yeah.
not doing it.
And I think it's like a life learning lessons, everyone experienced that at some stage, that like I think sometimes we might know this, but when we're so much in the weeds, we kind of forgot. So it's like whatever things that we're doing, we have to keep ourselves level-headed, and then there's always a big goals that's always ahead of us that we want to grab for each week, month, quarter, year, that we're following or chasing.
What I feel very, what I find very interesting though is that these delineations in terms of priorities of projects and obligations are not very clearly communicated by organizations because they just kind of want you to do everything just to get shit done, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like you figure this out on your own with maturity and experience. Oh, that's how you get promoted. Oh, that's how you develop a reputation and get in front of management. Oh, that type of work doesn't get you very far. The swim lanes are very ambiguous, I think, on purpose, so that organizations just squeeze as much juice out of you as possible.
Yeah. So I think relate back to my burnout, I think what I'm intentionally going to do in this quarter Q3 is selecting the ones that I wanted to be focused on. After crawling out of messy Q2, and now I'm going to be more like giving myself more guidance and directions. And when I'm just like you, like get so many notifications all day long, what are the things that needs my immediate attention, when to act now, and what's the benefit on that? It sounds very I don't know, sounds like I'm going after the shiny objects, but that's essentially what it is, the goal that you're trying to achieve, and what makes you not only look good but more fulfilling of yourself.
And you can even say, even though I went after this and it didn't work, I also know I gave myself the time. For example, when I was going to these different networking events and trying to see, the startup community who would be a potential client, again, I was disappointed with the results, but I prioritized myself and my needs and my time to go after this so I could learn from it and say, okay, here's what I've learned and here's what I know now.
Yeah.
And that really was it cleared up a lot of my time, but I also had to go through that because it was a priority to me. I wanted to tackle a certain marketplace, but I also had to understand the marketplace to know if it was the right place for me to play in.
Going back to examples that I gave earlier about
Mhm.
delegating tasks to junior level staff, and especially the more Gen Z generation coming back to you and saying, no, can't have it tomorrow. Nope, I'm not taking on that project. What do you think about that?
I love your
And
thoughts, or how do you handle? Oh,
oh yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, how have I handled?
yes, yes, as a
Well,
people
I
manager,
asked why. I mean, again, I was in a situation where everyone was
yeah.
overwhelmed, I should say, and everyone was under stress. Going back to the example I gave before, and of course I asked why, But I also, as someone who is of a different generation, got very frustrated because in my generation that would not have been acceptable. So
Mm.
Yeah.
on one hand, it was frustration and perhaps even envy, but on the end, also labeling this person as lazy. Well, I'm not going to work outside of 9 to 5. I'm not going to sacrifice my lunch break. I'm not going to sacrifice a PTO. And so I think it was ultimately envy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the courage to stand up to my manager like that.
I love that vulnerability that you just said, that it was envy. That resonates so much with me.
Because our generation, it was fear, especially
Fear.
working in New York and working at prestigious companies where it's kind of like they made it very clear you were replaceable.
No, I do want to go back to something that Cleo said about, having room for the things that she enjoys, her creativity. And I think there is a lot of that you can have in the workplace, but when they take that away from you and don't allow for you to explore your creativity in the work that you're doing, you lose your joy in what you're doing. And then it becomes a burdensome task. And then it becomes where, one of these resentments or regrets or like avoidance, and it's not something that's joyous anymore.
I agree.
And I think going back to selfishness, I think selfishness, yes, in part, but also a big part of that is gratification, self-gratification, which is what you're saying. And if you're spending 40 plus hours a week making money, there has to be an element of gratification there, right? And fulfillment. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I agree with that. One last question from me to close out our episodes. Now, in the beginning, I talked about how to, I don't know if there's a way for me to like rest my brain to get it restarted or refreshed. Any tips on that from your past experience or whatever you're currently doing?
So something I had to do for myself, and I worked with a coach about scheduling my day and allocating X amount of time to a task and then moving on to a task. So what I was finding was I was getting bored or getting frustrated. So I'd go like to a bunch of different tasks and never finish anything, where I said, I'm allocating this hour, this 2 hours, and breaking up my day into very focused time for a specific thing. Therefore, then I could stop, and whatever that time frame is, if I just was thinking and I didn't get to it, I have to move on to the next thing. So that also, again, it was an exercise I had to go through to start disciplining myself, especially when I'm like my own boss and trying to create my own schedule and start to generate business. That was super important for me, which I've actually now automatically start doing that for myself too. And if I don't watch the clock, I see also my brain taps out, like it's done. It doesn't, like my brain and my body already tells me like stop what you're doing, or it's like I'm gonna go, oh, I should go check the laundry now, or oh, I should I need a drink, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You get distracted naturally. You got bored on that. Yeah.
I think for me, my parting words is that it's not only okay, but you have to clock out.
Yeah.
And that's very hard when you are ambitious and you want to get ahead and you want to contribute.
Yep.
But you need to clock out.
I love that.
Good. Very, very actionable and good tips for me. I think that's what I'm going to do for Q3. To be more reasonable with my time and purposeful, intentional, and clock out.
And again, the way I had to go in and out of clocking in and clocking out was actual physical exercise. Like that helped me separate it, let it go.
Well, thank you, ladies, for this amazing session. I know we started with burnout, and then we go into like a very, very, I guess, different route, but also touches upon like the burnout aspects of it. So thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts. I had a great time with y'all.
Likewise. Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.